Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Research Works podcast here at the EACD and the IAACD 2025 in Heidelberg. And with me, I have another keynote speaker of this conference, Associate Professor Guro Anderson from Norway.
Yes. Hello.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here to share your keynote, which is titled Lessons Learned from 20 Years of CP Registry. Registries have been going on for 20 years already.
Yes, it has. We started out in 2001.
Wow.
And Norway is a small country, but it's a long and narrow country, and we have 21 habilitation units.
Wow.
We are about 5 million people in Norway, and we managed actually to have very good contact with all these habilitation centers so
Amazing.
that we get information. And what is very important for me to say, and I'm going to say it in the keynote, that we have 95% coverage.
Wow.
And that's
that
really something,
incredible.
actually. We're proud of that.
It really is.
Yes.
You should be. Because anyone who does anything with research knows that data collection is the most difficult part.
Yeah, it is.
But there's such great power and strength in a registry, isn't there?
Yes.
And I've read many publications from the Norwegian registry, and there's been a wealth of information and that you have managed to capture.
Yeah.
What are some of the main lessons that that has been learned? I know it's the title of your presentation, but I'd love to go through some of those now.
You know because before we started the registry, we didn't actually know anything about the population of children and youth with CP in Norway.
Right.
And now we have learned about their disability, or their strength.
Yes.
And we have learned a lot about the prevalence, because when we started out, we had a prevalence of about 2, and now we are down in 1.5 per thousand live births.
Wow.
So by having a registry, we have been able to follow the prevalence of CP during these 20 years, and we can see a decrease.
Yeah.
And we also have learned,
the strategies are working.
Yes.
Yes.
It does. And we also have seen that the severity of their CP has been reduced.
Wow.
So we have more children being able to walk without assistive devices than before. So we're doing something right, not only in Norway, but in the world, I think.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and that's incredible, right? Because if you're able to follow that through in your registry, implement all the latest to reduce the prevalence, the example is right there, and it becomes a footprint for everyone else as well. So it really does lead the way in that.
Yeah.
The fact that there's 20 years must mean that you have now adults with cerebral palsy captured within this, which is very rare data. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I can tell you, because we have followed up to 18, and now we're actually in the pipeline of preparing a systematic follow-up for adults. And that's more difficult because they're kind of spread out more than the children. And the habilitation units for adults in Norway are they are more varied or unequal, if I might put it that way.
No, I understand.
So it's harder to get them, but the adults themselves and the user organizations and the people with lived experience, they're actually crying for having a systematic follow-up, because they say, we have CP. The CP will last forever.
Yeah.
Why does this systematic follow-up stop at 18?
That's right.
Yeah. So now we're trying to convince the leaders and the governments that these people need systematic follow-up to take care of all the issues that may come, because these children, they have issues, they have challenges, and they don't get less when they get older.
In fact, they probably get more complex because so many things change, and the social constructs.
Yes,
right?
And also they are getting older, as we all are, but then you have this CP thing
on top of that.
Yes.
I've definitely noticed the stiffness in my back and my legs, and that happens with natural development anyway, and that impacts function.
Exactly.
What are some of the things that you're hoping to be able to capture in the adult registry. Can you give me some examples? And will there be any new elements that are different to childhood?
Yeah, we what is important is, of course, that the children and youth can live their lives, fulfilling lives, and they can go into adulthood and do a job.
Yes.
And become a partner.
Yeah.
And do some leisure activities.
Yeah.
And that's what we are now preparing the protocols or the sheets for what we're going to ask them. And we have our users, people with lived experience with us, and they have also said what they want us to ask and record.
That is fantastic.
And that's about employment. And, what is maybe difficult is, as you said, my back is hurting. Is that because I CP or is that because I'm getting older?
That's right. So you need to tease it out.
And knowledge among the general practitioners and neurologists.
That's right.
They're not that good because they're not. There are many people with CP, but they are not that many. So in a country as Norway, very spread out, you may have one or two during your life, and you're not able to cope with it, or you don't have the
you don't encounter it all the time, and it's a very unique experience. And I suppose the value of the registry, if we were say to know, I don't know, say 3 and 4 experience back pain, just coming back to that, making it up, but it's probably pretty real. Maybe it's 4 out of 4. If we were to know that, if they were to see a physician, at least that becomes on the radar to discuss. And then there may be some interventions that can be developed as a result. Maybe it's preventative rather than just at the time.
Yeah.
So many lessons there for adulthood. Let's go back into childhood now, which is where the registry is really strong and powerful.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what's been collected there?
Yeah. Sure. We collect regularly recordings from examinations of physiotherapists and occupational therapists every year or every second year, depending on the child's age and functional level. And then we collect medical data, and we collect cognitive data. We collect how they communicate.
Yes.
And then, of course, the big thing in CP surveillance is the X-rays of hips and backs.
Fantastic.
Because the Swedish registry started 10 years before us, and they experienced that with systematic follow-up of hips. You may actually erase dislocations of the hips.
And that's very important.
Because a dislocated hip hurts. So
lifelong ramifications, isn't it?
And now I think many people in Norway, both the patients or actually the health professionals, they kind of forget how it was because it's so natural for us.
Of course,
because we don't see that anymore.
That's right.
And we have seen, unfortunately, some refugees from other countries, new immigrants, and all of a sudden we see what we saw in Norway 20, 30 years ago because they haven't had this systematic follow-up.
Right.
And because what we have learned from these recordings, we just realized we have to make a guideline. So we have actually made guidelines, evidence-based guidelines for diagnosing and follow-up of children and youth and adults with CP in Norway.
Wow.
That was launched last year.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And that actually to give the professionals in the communities, in the specialist healthcare, the opportunity to, in an easy way, grasp what to do, what to do, what's the evidence, and then we have used all the things we have learned from the registry.
Brilliant.
About pain, about
sleep, probably, and hip.
Sleep, about mental disorders, because actually,
often overlooked and not discussed.
Yes. So then we have tried to make some recommendations on how, on at least ask for this. Put it on the agenda when you follow the child and
that's right.
Yes.
Don't forget about it. This is important.
Yes,
that's right. And it's always about being ahead of it. Would you say on reflection, are there any gaps, or has there been anything new that's been added to it that you've realised is important along the way?
I think actually the pain part
Okay. Yeah.
we have realized that actually, and that's painful actually
Yeah.
to see how many children having daily pain
Yeah.
and
It really
living
is
with that. They
devastating.
don't know
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
And that's a wake-up call on also the mental disorders that very many experience.
Yeah.
And you know about the or what you call it, the peer relations.
Sure. The
yes.
social connections.
Social
and-
connections.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sure.
And that's a big thing that is difficult to.
It's hard to capture that.
Yes, how to
in
capture
in
that,
a
yes.
data set that can be analyzed because it's very qualitative, isn't it?
It is, and it's also some ethical things about
course,
that.
of course.
If we
It's a shared
send,
registry.
yes,
Yeah.
because the information is of course anonymous when we get it, but if we send out patient-reported outcome measure formulas
Yes.
to answer, then it is quite difficult because does this come from my hospital or does it come from a registry?
Of course.
So when
if you were to identify
yes,
something,
yeah.
who's going to take is the duty of care?
Yes, and
Yeah.
we are we are discussing that, and
Sure.
that's not only for our registry, but also for the other quality registries in Norway. When you have answered something about your mental health, you
Yeah.
have kind of delivered it to somebody.
That's right.
But is anybody receiving
Gonna
it
receive it.
and doing so? That's an
Ethically, you
ethical,
can't
yeah.
identify someone who potentially needs a lot of support, but there's nothing to offer or to identify who they are. That is very challenging.
Exactly.
But also so vital for us to be able to collect our
Yeah.
services. So
Yeah.
I understand there's a bit of a grapple there to be
Yeah.
able to do that. But it's an important thing to grapple with so that we can come up with a solution
Yes.
somewhere
Yeah.
that respects the boundaries of privacy but providing support.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about maybe some future directions of, we've touched on the
registry?
adults.
Yes.
Is there anything else that's on the horizon?
So actually, the implementation of the guideline is a huge focus for us now.
Beautiful.
That and having the adult follow-up going.
Yeah.
Doing that and having the authorities, I think, to realize
To recognise that importance.
Recognize
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for
This
sure.
is important.
Yes.
And I think you can. It's all about money, in the politics.
Yeah.
But I think actually you can save some money
You can.
by having them
preventative
living fulfilling
surveillance.
lives and contribute in
That's
the
right.
in the labor market and having less hospitalizations because
Yes.
they're having good care,
Yes.
good follow-up,
Yeah.
taking care of their lung problems, their
Absolutely.
stomach problems and everything, and be aware of that. And we also have recommendations on physical activity.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I
so-
love that.
yeah.
It is the most important direction. I feel like I spoke with Mark Peterson many years ago, and he said to me, and it always comes back. There's sometimes one-lines that come back, and it resonates here. He was working with some general practitioners in the US where some of them had asked, is cerebral palsy still in adulthood? And that question alone from some people highlights that, one, you need to recognize it's lifelong. Secondly, the needs change, but it's lifelong. And we've focused so much in the first 18 years, which is so important because it sets you up. But the rest of your life is so long, and there's no school. What are you going to do for engagement? All the structures that are normally in place are gone. And the strength of the
That's true,
register
yeah.
will be to point in the direction of value and importance.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
And look at what you've already done in the first 20 years of the registry
Yeah.
and how it's changed the landscape. Like you said,
Yeah.
we don't know any different now. What a privileged place to be in. All right, let's remember what the adult case is right now. And hopefully that's something that will be of the past.
We hope so.
That's
Yeah.
inspiring. That's
Yeah,
exciting. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for
Thank you.
sharing with us
Thank
today,
you.
Guro. And
Thank you
thank
for
you for
having me.
sharing your keynote. Oh, such a pleasure.
Yeah.
I feel very excited for the future. There's a lot of hope. And thank you for your work in the space.
Thank you. Thank you.
To all of our listeners, I hope you really enjoyed that. There's so much more to come. So stay tuned for Research Works podcast. Talk to you all again really soon. Bye.